Hello everyone, it's Ben here, and today we're looking at a Task 1 IELTS Writing, which is a bar chart. So the task you're assigned to respond to is as follows. The chart below shows the different levels of post-school qualifications in Australia and the proportion of men and women who held them in 1999. Should be proportions, really, I guess. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. You should write at least 150 words. Well, as always, you have to write them. It's one of the requirements. I should point out that, first of all, there's a mistake in this. I don't know what the source of the infographic is, the bar chart. But what it's showing is if you take the entire number of these qualifications in Australia, let's say that 1,000 Australians got this. It's telling you that of those 1,000, men had about 90% and women had about 10%. So, I would say something like, in that year, 1999, Australian men were 9 times as likely to hold this particular qualification as their female counterparts were. So, if there were 1,000 held in that year, if men had 90%, they would have 900 of those thousands, and women would have the remaining 100. I'm mentioning this because a lot of the essays I've checked for this one, they don't really understand what's expected, and I think that might be partly because there is a mistake here, which is everything should add to 100%. That's what's intended. But one of them, undergraduate diploma, it actually adds up to about 105%, and nothing can ever be more than 100%. If you're talking about the total number or amount of something. You don't have to be a math genius to understand that. If you eat 100% of a pizza, you eat the whole pizza. So that's a mistake, and maybe that's partly where the confusion comes from. There is a bit of confusion in the essay I will show you. At this point in the essay, I usually suggest looking at the essay yourself by pausing on each of the different slides I'm going to show you and thinking about what score you would give the essay, and then you can compare that to what I will suggest at the end of the video. So this is the first slide of 3, the second, and the third and final one with the band descriptors to help you give a score. Available to everyone. Just Google Writing IELTS band descriptors, public version. Make sure you're looking at Task 1 rather than Task 2. A is academic, G is general training. General training is like letter writing. We're looking at the bar chart, so definitely looking at the A ones only. Well, not at the A ones only, I should say. The ones which have neither A or G. We're just not looking at the general training ones. Okay, so without further ado, let's have a look together. So the given chart illustrates the percentage of females and males who held 5 different types of post-school qualifications in 1999 in Australia. Generally good. I guess, as I said, it should be percentages. We have a lot of them. And it looks better to use, to give numbers as words with letters rather than digits, like that's a digit. Unless it's something that's not a whole number, 5.5%. I think whole number, is it integer is the proper word? I'm trying to remember from math class. But certainly if it's not the specific unit that's being used in the actual question, which data are provided for. Here it's just talking about different types, these ones here. So it's just a normal number for a normal kind of unit of something, not really relevant to the data in the question. And for that, certainly it looks more professional to write the word using letters, not digits. So that's a small issue, much bigger one. We have to remove all of this. Let's read it before I remove it to explain why I'm removing it. Overall, studying a skilled vocational diploma was the most popular choice for males, and an undergraduate diploma was the most favourable for females in Australia in 1999. Well, first of all, popular and favourable don't mean the same thing. If I have a favourable opinion of something or someone, it just means I have a positive opinion about that. Popular kind of suggests liking something. Maybe common choice would be better, because there are all kinds of reasons why people get a qualification. They might not even be interested in it. They might just do it to help their career or something. So again, maybe not popular. But the main thing is it's just not understanding, saying this was done most by men. It's not saying that. What it's saying is that for the people who did this, even if it was a tiny number, like, as we said, if 10 people did it in the whole of Australia, that's a tiny number, 10 people. But it's just telling you that of those 10, 9 were gotten by men, and the remaining 1 was obtained by a woman. It's not telling you that men were more likely to get this one than the other ones, if that makes sense. So it's a misunderstanding, and yeah, that is going to affect what the examiner thinks, because it's not really responding to the data in a way that is describing it properly. So that's a big issue. Whereas the next sentence is actually okay. It's much better. Suddenly it seems to understand a lot better what's expected. 3 out of 5 post-school qualifications had a higher number of male students who held them. It's not perfect. If you say 3 out of 5, it means like 60%. So it could be the case that, 15 types of qualifications are shown, and men had a higher proportion for 9 of those. Women had a higher figure for the remaining 6. So we're not talking about 3 out of 5. We're talking about 3 of the 5, of the specific 5 that are shown. 3 out of these 5, that's what we're talking about. And really, number and proportion are different. So, higher percentage. You could argue that, in this case, the number of men will also be much higher, because in a population, the proportions of men and women will generally be quite similar. There might be like 52% men and 48% women, for example. But it's still not that precise. We're not really looking at numbers, so it would be better to say proportion or percentage or something. So 3 out of the 5 post-school qualifications had a higher percentage of male students who held them. Held is a good word to use with a qualification. but it is used in the question, so maybe I'll just change it to a different one. Possess them. But again, if you have a qualification, you're not a student. That's the point. You've kind of graduated or, gone through the certification process. You've done it. You did what you wanted to, so you can finally stop studying. So, yeah, it's not really precise enough. Australian men who were students when they were studying, but now that they have the qualification are not really students anymore. So there are quite a few issues here overall. Moving on, about 10% of females held skilled vocational diplomas. Well, again, it's not exactly right. It's not 10% of Australian women. It's just saying that of the skilled vocational diplomas Australians had, of those, women had 10% of those. So 10% of all the women in Australia would be a huge number. But 10% of these qualifications might not be a huge number. So we have to change that because that's an issue. So females held about 10% of the skilled vocational diplomas. Apologies for my messy writing. In Australia, while the other 90% of them were held by males. Now that's pretty good. The most percentage, well, we don't say most, we say the largest, greatest, highest. Although the highest percentage of women held an undergraduate diploma, it was about 20% less than that of males who held a skilled vocational diploma, while it was around twice as much as males who held an undergraduate diploma. It's a bit messy that, if I didn't have the graph and I had to draw the graph by reading this, it's pretty hard to understand twice as much as males who held an undergraduate diploma. So less than that of males who did this, while twice as much as. One thing we should talk about is it's not 20% less. So undergraduate diploma, 70, and the original one, let's say it was around 40, even though that's wrong, as we talked about. That would be 30, not 20. Oh, no, sorry. 20% less than males who had a skilled vocational diploma. So that is... that's talking about the difference between these two. So my apologies, that is 20. But the issue is that it's not a percent difference, it's a percentage point difference. Which, in my experience, a lot of students don't get right. I'm not a math expert, but, I got okay grades at school. I did pretty well. But I used to work with someone who taught IELTS, and he had a finance background, and even he didn't use the correct words, percentage points. So there's a difference between percentage and percentage points. If you have two figures given as percentages, and you're talking about the differences between them, if you subtract the numbers, like 90 minus 70, you get 20. That's the percentage point difference. So why not percents? Well, I guess if you think about it this way, let's say we have a figure 50%. If that rises by 10%, 10% of 50% is 5%, isn't it? To get 10% of something, you divide it by 5. So if there's a 10% increase, it would go up to 55%. But if there's a 10 percentage point increase, that will be 60%. So that's the language we use to talk about these kinds of differences. So again, it's just about that precision with the language. It was about 20 percentage points less than that of males who held a skilled vocational diploma, while it was around twice as much as males, twice as high as males who held an undergraduate diploma. Is that right? Twice as high as males who held an undergraduate diploma. Yeah. If we say that this is about 35, this is about 70, yeah, that's about twice as high. So that's okay. Bachelor's degrees had the most similar percentage of men and women. The figures were approximately 55 and 45% respectively. Well, is that supposed to be a period? Starting a new sentence. So let's change this. Bachelor degrees had or saw the most similar percentages for men and women, or I guess of men and women who held them. We can often use with and an ing verb to keep it going, with the figures being approximately 55 and 45% respectively. That's quite nice. Is that right? So women 55, men 45, that would be. Let's check that. Yeah, that's fine. Postgraduate diplomas had the ratio of 3 to 7 for females and males. Well, that's one specific ratio. Well, it should be females to males, as they seem to understand here. I like that this writer actually understands what a ratio is, which a lot of people don't. They just want to vary the words proportion or something. So they look in a dictionary and they see words like ratio and percentage, and they think, oh, they must mean the same things, and they don't. Ratio has a very, very specific meaning. A ratio of 3 to 7. If I'm cooking something and let's say I'm baking a cake, I'm using salt and sugar. If the ratio is 3 to 7, I'll maybe use 3 cups of salt and 7 cups of sugar, so 10 cups in total. So actually ratio works quite well here. It's kind of saying like, well, 30% and 70% is similar to a 3 to 7 ratio. So that's good. I like that. Master's degree included a higher number of women who held it in 1999. It's a bit messy at the end. Let's change that. Master's degrees. this is actually correct with the apostrophe there. I like that because most people get that wrong. Master's degrees had, oops, sorry, I need my pen. Master's degrees had been gained or obtained my apologies, I said had, but I wrote have for some reason. It's 1999, it's in the past. Had been obtained by a higher number of women. Again, proportion is better, but it's probably also a higher number because the proportion's usually pretty equal in a population of men and women. Proportion of women, so had been obtained by a higher proportion of women in Australia in 1999. So master's degrees had been obtained by a higher proportion of women in Australia in 1999. I don't get this compared to postgraduate diplomas. I'm just going to delete that. I get that the question asks to make comparisons where relevant, but I just don't understand the comparison being made. I mean, comparisons, you're comparing the figures for men and women, basically. Bar charts are good at doing that, comparing two things like men and women. So just a new sentence. New sentence, so big W, women held 4 in 10 or 40% of, or 4/10 of postgraduate diplomas, while men held the rest, so the remaining 60%. The other 60%. Apologies for the messiness there, but this would be a little bit better now. Let's just make it a bit clearer if you want to read it again. So I thought this one was interesting. It wasn't helped by the mistake with the data, of course. But I thought you could still give a decent answer, recognizing there was a mistake. So what did I give this? I gave it, let me give you the scores first. 6 overall. And I gave it, for task completion, 5. Cohesion and coherence, 6. Vocabulary, which is actually lexical resource, 7. And grammar, I gave it 6. So, why? Task achievement. Does it address the requirements of the task? Presenting an overview with information appropriately selected. I don't think so. I don't think so because of the big misunderstandings. So it's more like generally addresses the task with an inappropriate format in places. So even though the quality of the writing in terms of the words choice and the grammar was sometimes good, it's not done too well for the task achievement. And cohesion and coherence, I gave it 6, I think, yeah. Arranges information and ideas coherently and clear overall progression. I thought it was, pretty pretty much good enough for that. But I didn't think I could say it logically organizes information and ideas. And again, it's mostly because of the misunderstandings, or I don't know if they're just mistakes or misunderstandings. I guess they're just errors, because often the writer does get it right and kind of understands what it's showing. You know, like the other 90% were held by males. That's fine, but the first part is wrong in the original piece of writing. So that's the reason for the 6 there, and not a 7. It's about the logical organization of information and ideas. And lexical resource, I gave 7 because I thought that was the best part. Less common lexical items, like words like ratio used correctly. Sufficient range of vocabulary. When the writer is understanding the data and showing that he or she understands it, then the word choice is actually often good. I think it was arguably a 6, but I kind of felt that it was a little bit more than an adequate range, even though there were occasional errors in word choice. Like, for example, I didn't really understand the use of the word included, but generally there weren't too many problems like that. I might be being a bit generous with the 7 there. It would be a high 6 or low 7 maybe, in my opinion. Grammatical range and accuracy. Mix of simple and complex sentence forms. Errors in grammar and punctuation, but they rarely reduce communication. Communication was reduced at times. I thought there were parts that were a little bit messy. Like here. But overall, I thought it was quite good, using some complex sentences while not really getting it right here, but I assume it was just meant to be a new sentence there. Again, I might be being a bit generous for this one. I kind of recognize that, but I think part of it might be a little bit of bias. I know this student who generally wrote very high quality essays, getting 7s and 8s, and this would be a relatively low one. So I think you could argue that these ones could each be 1 point lower, bringing the score down to maybe 5.5. But I'm curious what you thought. Again, I might be slightly biased there, so your kind of objective point of view may be slightly different. This one, I just felt that it was a hard question because of the mistake, and I think it was a hard question partly because of the mistake, and I think that's another reason why I might be being slightly generous, possibly. Anyway, that's all from me, so I hope you found the video useful. As always, thank you for watching and listening. Bye-bye.